Hello, and welcome to Chesapeake Public Schools Family Empowerment Webinar presented by the Office of Family and Community Engagement. I am Lisa Carey, one of the FACE specialists. Our office, which is under the Department of Engagement, seeks to create meaningful partnerships in order to inspire, engage, and empower families, educators, and community agencies to support the initiatives of Chesapeake Public Schools. We are typically available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. and can be reached by our main phone line at 757-482-5923 or face at cpschools.com. We are excited to offer our families a course catalog entitled Peak Parent University that outlines all of our events for the school year. You can also catch up on pre-recorded webinars, access a wealth of educational resources, and make community connections to promote your family's well-being. Please visit www.cpschools.com and search for Peak Parent University. We are excited to present to you information regarding navigating college without an IEP. As you may already be aware, IEPs and 504s are no longer applied to students once they graduate from high school. Colleges and universities have a variety of supports and accommodations in place to assist students. However, as a parent, it is important to learn what those supports are and how to access them and how to advocate for such support. At this time, I'd like to introduce Regina Stowe, who will share more information on her role with Chesapeake Public Schools and our panelists. Welcome, Regina.
Good evening and welcome. Yes, my name is Regina Stowe, and I am actually one of four transition specialists in Chesapeake Public Schools. As a transition specialist, we assist our students and families and the school in planning for life beyond high school. That may mean additional training for your student. That may mean a career or a job directly after high school, or that may mean going on to college or a university, hence our topic tonight. I'd like to share with the names of all of our transition specialists and the schools that they serve. And that's me, Regina Stowe. My home school is actually Oscar Smith Middle. Next, we have Dr. Frankie Dampierre. Her homeschool is Great Bridge Middle. Miss Sharon Willis, she is located at Greenbrier Middle. And Christina Trinello, her homeschool is Jolliffe Middle. So you can reach myself or any of these ladies at our home schools. Thank you. Now we'll begin with our first counselor, and I introduce to you Libby Jakubowski. She is the Educational Accessibility Counselor at TCC Chesapeake Campus. Libby has been at the campus for almost 8 years now and worked in disability services for 10. Next, we have Miss Beth Callahan. She is the college-wide coordinator of educational accessibility. Her office is located at the Virginia Beach TCC campus. Ms. Callahan has worked in the field for 16 years, and prior to this, she actually was a special education teacher at Western Branch High School in Chesapeake. Last but certainly not least, we have Ms. Courtney Gibson. She is the Director of Educational Accessibility at Old Dominion University. She has been in the field for 10 years, and she ensures that students have the equitable and reasonable accommodations needed. And I believe we're going to begin with Libby. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Yes, hi everybody. My name is Libby Jakubowski again, and I work at the Chesapeake campus of Tidewater Community College. Again, I'm the Educational Accessibility Counselor there. We have 4 campuses: Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, and Norfolk, and there's an Educational Accessibility Counselor at each campus. And we are led by Beth Callahan. I'll let her introduce herself to you now.
Great. Thanks, Libby. I'm Beth Callahan. Like I said, I'm the college-wide coordinator. I am located in the Virginia Beach, on the Virginia Beach campus.
So we're going to provide an overview of what the accommodation process is for students coming out of the high school setting and then heading into TCC. Next slide. Okay, so to begin the process, we'll talk about what the process for accommodations in college. So accommodations in college are oftentimes very similar to the accommodations you may find in an IEP, but the process to go about getting those accommodations can be a little bit different. So our goal for accommodations is to provide access to the coursework, the program of studies, and the campus. We want to level the playing field for the student, and we want to make sure that the accommodations are reasonable, but do not modify the curriculum. So many of our programs at Tidewater Community College may be career and technical education programs, which have specific technical standards that students must need to meet in order to complete the program. So we want to make sure that accommodations give students access to the learning experience, but do not modify the curriculum. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. Some common types of accommodations that you'll find in college, and again, you'll probably see some similarities of what you might see in your IEP. There's testing accommodations. So when students need extra time for quizzes, tests, and exams, we can provide those through their academic accommodation form. Along with the extra time could be a reduced distraction setting. So many times in the high school setting, you might see small group testing. In the college experience, the students would go to the testing center or an alternate reduced distraction setting and receive their extra time there. Access to lecture notes and recording of lectures are very common accommodations for many of our students. Access to lecture notes could include PowerPoint notes or lecture notes that the instructor provides to the class, and if not, then we would ask them to provide that to the student. Many students might record their lectures now, the technology has advanced so much for recording, they may use their own devices or things like LiveScribe pens if they're taking their own notes, but that also record the lecture at the same time. We work with students to talk to them about their assistive technology needs. Many students might use read and write software. We have some students that might need to use JAWS or other type of screen readers. And so depending on the student and what their need is, we'll find out what assistive technology is available that is already on our computers and technology, and then also help connect them to other resources to find that. Attendance accommodations for students who have pre-existing medical conditions or disabilities which may interfere with their attendance. We can set up a structured attendance accommodation for them to work through with their instructor if they have to miss class due to a pre-existing medical condition. Choice of seating, large print tests and handouts, use of calculator, and then spell check or spelling dictionary. And these are just some of our more common accommodations. We'll work with each student individually and determine what they may need in their learning experience. And so sometimes we make adjustments to these accommodations to be specific to the student's needs, or we sometimes have to come across accommodations that we've never seen before, but we've had to create for a specific student. So we're flexible and can make adjustments when needed. So one of the biggest questions that we get is, how are students eligible for accommodations at college? And the biggest question is, well, what do you need in terms of documentation? So students do need to provide documentation to disability services. So disability services is sort of the broad category of what this resource is at colleges and universities across the country. Our particular office is called Educational Accessibility. But we'll tell the students that the documentation needed really depends on the type of disability that they have. We may see documentation from psychologists or psychiatrists, from mental health professionals. We might see them from primary care providers, medical doctors. We also see documentation that was provided through the IEP process. So while historically IEPs weren't considered documentation, we are now able to accept IEPs as documentation if there is sufficient information that's included in them. We'll review that with the student and then talk about, based on the accommodations that they're requesting, does the documentation in our discussion support the need for those accommodations? So we'll review that documentation with the student and then talk about what their needs are and then set up the accommodations based on that process. It's an interactive process and it's a fairly comprehensive discussion. So when we talk with the students, we go into their educational history, the types of accommodations that were helpful for them when they were in the high school setting. We'll talk about some of the differences in the environment and the structure of the college classes and how some accommodations they might not have had before that they might need now that they're in the college setting and vice versa. So we really do factor in the interview and the discussion that we have with the student as well to determine what their reasonable accommodations are. One of the biggest, and so with the part of requesting accommodations, students do have to initiate the contact with educational accessibility at TCC. So this is probably one of the biggest differences between high school and college. In high school, it's the school's responsibility to ensure that the students are successful in their educational setting, which would include establishing an IEP if necessary. But because we don't have IEPs in college, the only way that we would know that a student would need that accommodation is if they initiate that contact with the Office of Educational Accessibility. Is everybody still able to hear me? I just had a notification that my internet was unstable.
Yes.
You're good? Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry for that disruption. So students can initiate contact with our office in a couple different ways. We have a website which provides a link to an online intake form. And I think Beth might go through that process in a little bit later. But the students can contact our office, let us know that they have questions about whether or not they're eligible for accommodations in college. We would schedule an appointment to meet with them, talk to them about what documentation is required, and then set up those accommodations in that process. Sometimes we can do it in one appointment. Sometimes we have multiple appointments with the students, just depending on what their needs are and how much information we need to go over. We don't want it to be an overwhelming process for the students. So sometimes the first appointment may just be getting to know each other and meeting each other, talking to them, introducing ourselves, talking to them about the process. The second appointment might be more about going over the accommodation. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back to the other slide real quick. Once we talk with the students about their accommodations, we will set up an academic accommodation form, and then it's the student's responsibility to request that those accommodations be emailed to their instructors each semester, and then discuss with the instructors how they can use those accommodations in the classes. So the students are going to have a much more involved role at the college level than they will at the high school level.
Thank you, Libby. Again, I'm Beth Callahan. So part of the process in the college level is that students definitely have more responsibilities about managing their accommodations. So like Libby had mentioned before, you do have to self-disclose your disability to the college. We do not receive a list from the high schools letting us know if students have 504 plans or IEPs. So if you don't tell us, we do not know. Usually at most colleges, you'll get this information at any kind of orientation. It's in every college syllabus. So the information is out there. But also a good way to look too is just to search disability in the college's website, and it should usually pull up the web page for any of the college. I know with ours, it's called Students with Disabilities because not everybody knows the name of each individual office. Like we're Educational Accessibility, as is ODU, but some colleges are Access. I think Norfolk State is Oasis. So there are a lot of different names for that. But usually if you can type in disability or accommodations in the search for a 4-year school or a 2-year school, you're able to find that web page. And the student is required to participate in the accommodation process. So when Libby talked about how it's kind of an interactive process, we talk with the student, we kind of do an informal interview. We ask them their strengths and weaknesses, what accommodations have worked in the past. Students need to be able to articulate that, to tell us what they has worked and what hasn't. And that really helps in the process because if not, we just kind of guess. While we do read through the documentation, it really is important for us to get the student's view of what's worked and what's not. And then they're really in charge of managing their academic progress. Our caseloads are, 300 students per counselor. So unless the student lets us know that they're having problems, we don't know. We do send out emails during the semester to check in, let them know about services on campus. But if they're not checking their emails or if they're not tracking their grades or they're not reaching out to us, we don't necessarily know what their grades are until they do. We don't have access to that information. So it's very important that students realize that they are managing their grades, they are managing if they missed assignments, they're managing all of their tasks. If they need help, letting us know, we can help them with that. But again, we don't know this information until they tell us. And then also it is their responsibility to seek available campus supports. So most colleges have tutoring programs. The tutoring isn't through our office, but it is available to all students. We can give accommodations for tutoring if there's extra time needed, but it's really the responsibility of the student to ask us, like, what are some of campus resources that we might be able to use if we're having certain kind of problems in class. Next slide. So our responsibility in our office is that we help establish the appropriate accommodations based on the student's documentation. So like we've talked about a couple times, we review the documentation, we look at what kind of accommodations we've seen in the past that may be needed. We talk to the student and really ask them questions about what's worked for them. It may mean creating an accommodation we've never done before, or it may be something fairly basic. Another thing too is that different from the IEP, it's usually the accommodation form that we give at the end of this is just a page, maybe 2 pages. Sometimes they're called letters, sometimes they're called agreements. We call them an academic accommodation form at TCC, but it's just the student's name. It doesn't say their disability, and it has their accommodations listed, and that's it. So as opposed to the 25-page IEP with a lot of information in it, the accommodation form is just that. It's just accommodations that are needed. And the professors don't have access to the disability information. Our office is the only one who has that information, and they're not allowed to ask either. Now, students, of course, can tell them if they're comfortable with that, but we don't release that information. Our office also helps facilitate specialized equipment. So if there are interpreters we need to schedule, we do that. If there's kind of specialized equipment that needs to be moved into a classroom or wheelchair accessible tables, we help with those as well. We certainly encourage self-advocacy. We talk to students about how to talk to professors about their accommodations. We send them an email every time their accommodation forms go out to let them know it's time to contact their instructor during their office hours and talk about their accommodations. And then also letting us know if there's any issues. So if they're not comfortable talking to their professors, they can reach out to us and we can help facilitate that. Our office provides a lot of faculty support and a lot of training all throughout the semester. We do different subjects on training. I'm doing 6 this semester already on different topics that professors are interested in disability. And then we provide assistance in resolving conflicts if there's conflicts between students with disabilities and faculty members, especially regarding accommodations. All right, next slide. So parent involvement. So this is probably one of the bigger changes that you as the parent will have. So while you were very involved in your child's IEP process and special education and 504 plan, it's really the student now who is an adult, and we view them as an adult in college. So it's them who needs to reach out to us. It's them who needs to go to the appointment and discuss accommodations, and it's them who needs to talk to their instructors. Instructors don't like to talk to parents. I would say our office is understanding, especially if you've always been involved in your child's education, especially that first intake meeting. It's no problem if you come with the student. A lot of times, sometimes we get better information from the parents than we do the students, but it's kind of slowly letting that go after that initial meeting and really allowing the student to voice it with maybe just giving them some reminders usually works the best, because they'll need to be responsible for their accommodations from now on out. And then really creating a good learning environment for them at home. I'll say my son is a freshman in college this year, and he had a 504 plan, and it was really hard for me to let go. When he contacted the disability office at his school to get accommodations, I tried to give him all these tips, but I did not go to the appointment with him, and he did very well. And I am trying very hard not to get involved with what he's doing, but it is very hard to let them go when you've been kind of fighting for what they need most of their lives. But it really does help encourage independence, and it makes them understand what their disability needs are and what their strengths are. And then also understand Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, which is FERPA. So you do have some limited access if the student signs over for FERPA to access to their grades and their financial aid information. But it doesn't give you like full access to everything, to emailing professors and asking like everything that you want to. There aren't really parent and teacher conferences. It's really up to the student to contact us or to work with us. You can certainly help coach your child through that. You can help coach them with emails. We tell students if they're not sure how to talk to an instructor to email us a draft, and we'll help them go through it, and we'll practice with them as well. But it's really important that they learn this independence, because even when they go out into the workforce and they ask for job accommodations, they need to be familiar with this process. All right, next slide. And then finally, the timeline. So this is a very brief timeline, but I would say their senior year, they need to begin gathering documentation for college. So look at the IEP, see how detailed it is. See if you've had that old psychoeducational testing done. If you need to get a letter from the doctor stating about ADHD because it's not documented anywhere, go ahead and start looking through that. We don't really have a date for certain documentation. If it's 10 years old and it hasn't really changed, we're not going to make you get retested. After high school graduation, you'll want to go ahead and even before, if you want to, especially with the community college, because you can do your application and it's automatic. With the four-year schools, you have to apply and be accepted. But with us, once you do your application, you have a student ID number. You can go ahead and we have an online intake form on our webpage. You can go ahead and submit your documentation right there. And we'll send you an email back requesting, telling you how to make an appointment with us online. You can come in and meet with us. We can do it on Zoom or we can do it on the phone. But we do request that you try to get everything in before your first semester of college, about 35 days prior to the classes. We can take it the day before classes, certainly. It's just very busy and hard to get an appointment with us at that time. So you may have a delay in getting your accommodation started. So the earlier you do it, the better. And that way, if you're missing anything, we can let you know and you have plenty of time. Once you turn in your documentation, if nothing changes and you don't need any different accommodations, and when you're at school, you don't need to provide us with anything else. We don't review it. We don't ask for updated information unless it's a very specific medical condition with an end date to it. So once you are registered with our office, you're registered with our office, and we don't really request additional information. And I think that's it. Next slide. Yeah, and here is our contact information. Libby is the Chesapeake counselor. And there's our information. And again, I'm the college-wide counselor. And I think this information will also have been sent to you. And next up is Courtney Gibson from ODU. She's the Director of Educational Accessibility.
Thank you so much, Beth. I concur with everything that Libby and Beth stated. Transitioning from high school to college is very important for high school students with disabilities. So I want to talk a little bit about accessibility in the realm of higher ed. So we're federally mandated by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which states that if you disclose your disability and our institution receives federal funding, we cannot discriminate. Also, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 enacted of 1990, amended in 2008 under Title II, which states that we must provide reasonable accommodations in higher education arenas once you disclose that information. And as Beth stated earlier, you have to disclose this information. So accessibility, a practice of making information, activities, environments, sensible, meaningful, and usable for all individuals. Next slide. So the process for Office of Educational Accessibility, we have two ways to register within our office. So because you are a high school student, you will visit our main website and you will submit your documentation via our secure portal. We have now just changed software systems, and so students who are current at ODU will be able to register through their ODU portal. Once we receive your documentation, you will receive a contact from our office administration specialist, and they will assist you with scheduling your appointment. You will be meeting with step 3, an OEA counselor, which will assist you in the interactive process for accommodations. Once that has been submitted and the interactive process has been done, we will send out your letter of accommodation. As best stated, it's different verbiage. We call them accommodation letters within our office. Each term or semester, you currently will still be registered with our office. No updated information. However, you do have to request your accommodation for that semester. That just lets us know that your current student status is good standing and you're a current student at ODU. Next slide. So the impacts of disabilities that we see at ODU is time management, organization, and study skills. I'll give a little bit more about what we provide when it comes to time management, organization, and study skills. Some of our students have memory recall, processing, and working memory conditions, writing, reading, and math skills deficiencies. Sometimes students may become overwhelmed. Absences due to medical or mental health diagnosis. We also work with our student outreach and support, which is called ODU Cares. They assist with extended long absences and can assist with excused absences based on hospitalization. Sometimes students may have difficulty in completing assignments within a given time frame, test anxiety, note-taking skills, loss of auditory or visual processing or auditory processing, and also physical access. So within our office, we work with the registrar's office to ensure that students who are in need of parents who are in need of consent, they will sign the FERPA consent. That information I can forward over for you all so that you can review it. Within Classroom Central, they help us with the physical access in the classroom and those barriers that students are having. We also work with parking and transportation to ensure that the impact of the disability is assisted with mobility around campus. Also, housing and facilities, if students are in need of a place to live on campus and need ergonomic areas to fixing of areas in the housing facilities. And then we work with equity and diversity. We are no longer the compliance officer within our area. We work with equity and diversity to ensure that you receive non-discriminatory practices for our faculty members. Next slide. So some of the common accommodations that we have at our institution. We have graduate assistants that work with students for time management and study skills. They meet with students that are registered on each caseload that have deficits in time management and study strategies, and they help students come up with various ways to learn management of their time to do their specific study within each course. Electronic textbooks based on the learning ability of that student in the areas of learning learning style, we assist with electronic textbooks. And they and that goes hand in hand with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, where it states that disability services has to help with alternative textbook materials, and we work with faculty members to ensure that that course material is accessible. Distraction reduced testing room. We have our own testing room within our office. And so within the interactive process, we do discuss with the student where they can take their tests if they choose to have that informed choice of taking their exams within the testing center. So the distraction reduced library space that we have, we work with the Dean of Libraries to upgrade our technologies for students who have visual impairments, and also to receive updated alternative textbooks in any format. One-on-one meetings with the accessibility advisor, we try to talk to students 30 days, 45 days, and 90 days. 30 days allows us to know where the progress is for students. 45 days allows us if we need to allow students to meet with any support services, and 90 days just to see where they are at the end of the semester. We definitely have assistive technologies. We work with a third party to have CART services and closed captioning services to also providing transcription services. As of right now, our note-taking support is a volunteer service. So any student that was within each class that the student is in will volunteer to take notes for our students. Next slide. So that is the end of the information that I have for you on this slide. I do have a document to be shared with you all, the do's and the don'ts of college, and then I will give the program back to Miss Lisa Carey. Am I able to share this information?
Yes, I'm going to stop sharing so that you can go ahead and share. One moment. Okay, go ahead and try to share.
Thank you so much. So we want to have students to be engaged more with the process instead of parents. We love parents. We want you to go ahead and sign the FERPA consent so that we can engage with students. However, some of the do's and don'ts, I'm going to make this, if I can get to the bottom, let me push this. Do apologize, I can't see my screen. I'll just do it like this. I will provide a PDF, an accessible PDF. So high school is a teaching environment. College is a learning environment. In high school, you proceed from one class to another. In college, it might be a small class, online class, or it might vary from specific programs. So the school year is 180 days. Within a specific week, you might have 12 to 16 hours of classwork. Generally, the maximum of students in high school is 35. There have been in some classes in college at ODU 200 students. So the areas and the environment can be larger. So in high school, teachers might check your completed assignments, homework policies. In college at the university level, it might vary from professors. So they might have on their syllabus, which is their agreement course content with you, of an understanding of what is need to be done. Sometimes you might be reminded of incomplete work when you are in high school. Professors do not remind students of incomplete work. Teachers present materials to help you understand the material. Professors may not follow the textbook, and they might have in their syllabus guidelines to discuss in detail what you need to read. And so regarding studying, you might be able to study from 0 to 2 hours outside of class. It is expected in university level and college to study 2 to 3 hours outside of class. You might be expected to read short assignments. In college, it varies regarding a substantial amount of information that is needed for the class. Regarding tests might be frequent in high school or small. In college, they might be large amounts. You might have small quizzes, or you might have writing assignments. In high school, you may have makeup tests. Seldom do you receive makeup exams in college. However, if you are in dire need of missing a class based on a disability-related issue and you're not able to have that exam, working with our office, we can talk with faculty members about making the exam up. Teachers frequently adjust test dates in high school. In college, it's usually listed on the syllabus discussed earlier, which is that agreement with you and the professor of information noted. So grades. So grades are given most for assigned work. In college, grades might not be provided of all assignments. So sometimes that can cause anxiety. However, you will receive your grades. Graduation may occur as long as you have passed all courses in high school. At the university level, some departmental standards are 2.0, which is the C average, and that is when a student graduates. Personal freedom, and this is where we want to extend our self-advocacy and our interpersonal skills that we teach students. In high school, you usually have a structured way of going. In college, learning time management skill is very needed. However, if you have deficits in time management and organizational skills, again, we do provide that as an accommodation. You have to have permission to participate in high school and extracurricular activities. Here at ODU, we have extracurricular activities that students can get in, even if they're not an athlete within our institution. You might need money for special purchases or events. Sometimes at our institution, students don't have their basic needs met. However, we do have support services such as our food pantry to assist you all. So disability needs, your individualized education plan prescribes the services that you receive in high school. You must present us with documentation from a licensed provider or your individualized education plan, or if you have received an evaluation from the 9th or the 12th grade. However, as Beth stated, we do not have and even in the law, there's not a specific, no, I wouldn't say the law, within each area or disability services, they have documentation guidelines. We uphold the social justice model. So whatever students have as far as their evaluations from high school, we do accept. So in high school, professionals and a team of educators, they come together with your parents to develop your individualized education plan. Here in college, you're with an accessibility advisor, you might be with an accommodations consultant. The verbiage may change and you sit down to discuss your educational needs based on your condition. So in high school, you have a teacher to monitor you and your progress. Here, once you disclose that disability to our office, we provide the accommodations. We work with faculty members on learning how to facilitate accommodations appropriately. And then if you don't receive accommodations at the beginning, we have up into final exams. So the week before, 2 weeks prior to final exam, that is the cutoff for our institution for students to register, because we can't provide sufficient accommodations for just final exams. And that is all that I want to share with you all. And so I will stop sharing and give it back to Lisa Carey. And thank you so much for being in our webinar.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to share my screen one last time so that they can get your contact information. Again, this information will be shared with you in a separate email. And let's see here. All right. And I want to take this time to thank all of our participants for sharing their wealth of knowledge. Again, I will share the contact information with all of our attendees this evening. If you should have any questions pertaining to Chesapeake Public Schools, you can reach out to any of the transition specialists, and you will also receive a copy of which transition specialist services which schools. So you'll have all of that information available to you at the conclusion of this webinar. At this time, I'd like to conclude the webinar, and I want to thank you for joining us this evening and wishing you a great afternoon. Thank you.